Okay, everybody. Our last chapter is the female reproductive system. Okay. You know that male and female reproductive system are completely different. This is the only system, reproductive system, which is different in male and female. Female reproductive system is more complex, more complicated. Why? Because it performs more functions. You know that female reproductive system performs much more function than male reproductive system. Male reproductive system produces sperm and sex hormones. Female reproductive system produces ovum and sex hormones. However, female reproductive system performs few more important functions. You know the ovarian cycle, right? That takes place inside the female reproductive system. Menstrual cycle occurs inside the female reproductive system. Fertilization occurs inside the female reproductive system. After fertilization, what happens? Embryo is formed, right? In female reproductive system, inside the uterus. Embryo becomes what? Fetus, right? Inside the female reproductive system. So all those things are happening inside the female reproductive system. You already know that ovaries are the primary female reproductive organs. So, ovaries, how many? Two are female primary reproductive system, and testes are male reproductive system, primary organs of male reproductive system, and both are called gonads. So male gonads are testes, female gonads are the ovaries. Inside the ovary, oogenesis or production of ova of ovum or egg, also called oocyte, and secretion of female sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone. So, ovaries produce ovum and female sex hormones. In one ovarian cycle, only one egg is released. In case of male, you know, million of sperm gets out in one, ejaculation. But in case of ovum, only one mature ovum is released in each cycle.
Do you mean that each ovary has one egg, or between the two ovaries there's one egg? Between the
Yes.
two there's one?
Yes.
Oh, from each?
Yeah, alternate.
Oh, alternate.
Yeah. So otherwise, two ovum will get fertilized, right? So it should not happen. Accessory organs of female reproductive system include uterine tubes, also called fallopian tubes, uterus, vagina, external sex organs like labius majus, or labia majora, labius minus or labius minus, clitoris, hymen, those belong to external sex organs. This is a longitudinal cut of the pelvic area of the body. You can see those structures, okay? One side. So you see one ovary, and this is the uterine tube, also called fallopian tube. This is the uterus. It houses the embryo, and embryo becomes a fetus inside this. So it expands a lot. This is vagina and external genitalia. Now, ovary releases the ovum or egg by ovulation. So when ovulation occurs, one egg is released. And you see at the end of the uterine tube, you have finger-like structures like this. Okay? So this is the ovary, and these are the finger-like structures at the end of the uterine tube. Okay? What happens when egg is released? These finger-like structures called fimbriae, they capture the egg and take the egg inside the tube. Makes sense? And the egg starts to move towards the uterus. And if sperm enters into the female body, sperm travels a long way. And most of that time, fertilization occurs in this part of the uterine tube. So egg is very slow, moves from here to here, and sperm travels a long way to meet the egg. Makes sense? So sperm travels a long way. Anyway, so that is the process. Now, you see that female reproductive organs are kept in right location in the pelvic cavity by a number of ligaments. So these are the ligaments to hold the reproductive organs in right locations. Important ligaments are ovarian ligament, suspensory ligament, round ligament, and broad ligament. Ovarian ligament, there are two, one in each side, connects the ovary to the uterus. Suspensory ligament connects ovary to the lateral pelvic wall. You know, pelvic bone, hip bone, okay? So ovary to the wall of the pelvic cavity, okay? Round ligament connects the uterus to the labius majus or labia majora, the posterior wall of the labius majus. Uterus to the back of the labius majus. Broad ligament is a flat membrane. It is not a rope-like ligament. It is a flat, that's why it is called broad. Flat membrane. And it supports the uterus, ovary, uterine tube, all those structures. So basically, most of the reproductive organs are supported by that flat membrane-like broad ligament. So now let's see the ligaments. You see here, this is the ovary and this is the uterus. So this is the ovarian ligament. Ovary to uterus. Suspensory ligament from ovary to the lateral pelvic wall. Lateral pelvic wall. From ovary to the wall of the pelvic cavity. broad ligament you have in both sides, suspensory also, both sides. So this is the broad ligament, you see, a flat membrane, and it is attached to the uterine tube, attached to the ovary, attached to the round ligament, attached to the uterus, wall of the uterus, right? So this is a flat membrane that is supporting all those organs. This is the round ligament. This one, they did not let, oh here, oh sorry, not that one. This is the round ligament that goes from the uterus to the labius majus, the back of the labius majus. So those are the ligaments: ovarian, suspensory, round ligament, and broad ligament. To hold the organs in right locations in the pelvic cavity, supporting the organs. Now, ovary. The primary organs are ovaries. If you see the structure of an ovary, the outer covering is fibrous to protect the ovary. Fibrous structure is strong, you know that. So fibrous, tunica means layer, albuginea. So white fibrous covering, tunica, albuginea. Then if you see inside the ovary, the outer part is called the cortex and the inner part is called the medulla. So outer cortex and inner what? Medulla. Okay. So if I see the ovary, this is the outer part, cortex, and the inner part is the medulla. Okay. Now, in the outer part, you have the structures, those are called the follicles. And these follicles are in different stages of maturation. Okay? So, these are the follicles. All these are follicles. This is the earliest stage, that's the stem cell, and gradually the follicles get bigger and mature, and this is the most mature follicle. Okay? The earliest follicles are called primordial follicles. Okay? And the most mature follicles are called Graafian. Follicle. Okay? And in between you have other steps of maturation. So you see that earliest primordial follicle is the earliest one, and then next is primary follicles, then secondary follicles, late secondary follicles, and then the most mature, that is the Graafian follicle. Is it clear? So earliest is what? Primordial, and then primary follicles, secondary follicles, late secondary follicles, and most mature is the Graafian follicle. Okay? Sorry, I spelled here Graafian, should be 2A. I see here Graafian, 1F. Okay? Graafian follicle. Now, inside the follicle, you have the egg or ova or oocyte. So this is the egg. Inside each follicle you have an egg. like this, okay? Or oocyte, or ovum, whatever you say, okay? And the rest part is filled with other cells. And these are the follicular cells. Makes sense? So one egg or ovum or oocyte and many follicular cells. So this is the egg and these are the follicular cells. At late secondary stage, this is the late secondary stage. Late secondary stage, what happens? A cavity, not one actually, multiple cavities are formed inside the follicle. Those small cavities then finally join together to form one big cavity in Graafian follicle. So in late secondary stage, we see small cavities appear inside the follicle. And then those cavities join together to form a big cavity, and that is called antrum. Antrum. Okay. And when you see, let's go and see here. See this primordial follicles, the earliest that they have shown, they didn't show primordial, primary, then secondary, late secondary. This is the most mature Graafian follicle. Now you see at late secondary stage, some small cavities appear in the follicle, then they join to form a big one, and that is called the antrum that I showed you here. Okay, antrum. Now this follicle is big and this cavity is filled with fluid. So now just think that this Graafian follicle is filled with fluid. So it's a fluid filled structure and you have egg inside, okay? It is like a ripe fruit. You know, when fruit is small, what happens? It is hard or soft? Green fruit, hard or soft? Hard, right? Then gets bigger, right? And gradually gets what? Soft. And then very soft, right? And if you don't eat, it will rupture. Release the egg means what? Seed. Release the seed out. Same thing happens here, okay? So when the follicle is matured, lot of fluid is inside, right? So it is soft, like a ripe fruit. Ready to do what? Rupture. And release the egg, which is like seed. So what happens? The Graafian follicle ruptures and the egg or ovum or oocyte comes out. Okay? And that process is called ovulation. You all probably have heard. Ovulation is the release of the egg from the ovary, okay? By the rupture of the Graafian follicle. Is it clear? So Graafian follicle ruptures, egg comes out. Now you see one thing, egg comes out with some follicular cells around it, as well as a thick layer is present here. That is the white one here. Okay? So egg with some other structures comes out. Now the rest part of the Graafian follicle remains inside the ovary. And this rest part, this is important, what happens after ovulation, this rest part of the Graafian follicle is converted to a yellow structure, yellow colored structure, and this is called corpus luteum. Luteum is yellow. Corpus luteum. A yellow colored structure. Why it is yellow? Because it has a lot of fat inside, adipose tissue inside. Okay. Now, why this is important? Because this corpus luteum works as a temporary gland. Works as a temporary gland, not permanent. If no fertilization occurs, this egg is not fertilized by sperm, then this temporary gland stays there for 14 days. How long? 14 days. But there is a condition. What is the condition? If fertilization does not happen, does not occur. Is it clear? So if released egg is not fertilized, then corpus luteum stays only for what? 14 days and acts as a temporary gland. Is it clear? So gland does what? Releases hormones. So we need to know which hormones are released by this temporary gland, corpus luteum, for those 14 days. Estrogen, progesterone, and inhibin. So these three hormones are released for 14 days from the corpus luteum. Now, remember, when the blood level of estrogen, progesterone, inhibin is high, those hormones are high in the blood, female blood, no more maturation of another egg will occur. No more maturation will occur. Make sense? So for 14 days it will stay halt. Then after 14 days, what happens? This corpus luteum is turned to a white structure, like scar tissue structure, and that is called corpus albicans. Corpus albicans. Here, the yellow structure becomes a scar tissue structure which is whitish color, and it is called what? Corpus albicans. So corpus luteum is what? Yellow or white? Yellow. Luteum. Corpus albicans, white, right? You know, albino means what? White. Albino, right? So, then it degrades. The corpus albicans, it's like a scar tissue, breaks into pieces and disappears. Make sense? So, done. So now let's see from the beginning again what happens. So, growth and maturation of the follicle from here to here, right? Agree? Everybody? Growth and maturation, right? From here to here of the follicles. So this part is called the follicular phase. Follicular phase. Okay? Because follicle grows and gets mature. It takes about 14 days. Again 14 days. Okay? 14 days. Then the graphene follicle ruptures, and that is called what? Ovulation, to release the egg. So number one is 14 days, follicles get matured and then rupture. It doesn't take even day, it ruptures and releases. So no day. Then corpus luteum is formed. And how long the corpus luteum stays? Another 14 days and act as a temporary gland, right? So that is called luteal phase. Makes sense? Follicular phase, ovulation, and corpus luteum stays for 14 days. That is the luteal phase. So how many phases? 3. First is the follicular phase, right? Follicles get bigger and matured. Then number 2 is what? Rupture of the follicle and release of the egg. That is called what? Ovulation. And then corpus luteum is formed, right? Acts as a temporary gland and stays for 14 days. That is the luteal phase. So those are 3 phases of ovarian cycle. The whole thing is called the ovarian cycle. How many phases? 3, right? 3 phases. How many days total? 28, right? 14, 0, 14, 28 days. So that is one cycle. In the medulla part, you don't see the follicles. Follicles are in the cortical part. In the medulla, you have the blood vessels, arteries, veins, those structures. Okay? So see here, after the luteal phase, corpus luteum is destroyed, right? After 14 days, becomes corpus albicans and destroyed. Then what happens? No more hormones are released. Hormone level will go down. Ovary will start to, another follicle starts to get matured. Make sense? Takes another 14 days, then another 14 days, then again, starts. So the corpus luteum, it releases these hormones to do what? To stop another ovulation. Is it clear? To stop another ovulation for a while, right? Then again it starts when corpus luteum is destroyed, which is very important. Otherwise, one after another, ovulation will occur, right? And you don't need it. Ovums are very important, okay? You don't need to produce too many. So just very precious. Once a month, right? So that is important. Now, this is interesting. If this egg is fertilized by a sperm, then the corpus luteum changes its mind, decides to stay longer. How long? About 3 months. So, if fertilization occurs, then corpus luteum stays much longer. How long? 3 months. You now understand, as long as the corpus luteum is there, those hormones, estrogen, progesterone, inhibin, will be released, right? And no further ovulation will occur during that time. Is it clear? during pregnancy, no further ovulation should occur. You know that, right? No further pregnancy or ovulation should occur. So, 3 months, the corpus luteum will keep it stopped. Keep another ovulation stop. Make sense? Now the question is, how about rest part of the pregnancy? During that 3 months, another structure is formed and get matured. That is called the placenta. Have you heard placenta? So placenta is formed and gets matured. Okay, functional. And now placenta takes over the function of the corpus luteum. And placenta starts to release estrogen, progesterone, inhibit. Is it clear? So now corpus luteum will say, okay, my function is someone else is doing my job, so I should not stay. Okay, so corpus luteum will be destroyed. And until the birth, the placenta will stay in the body and will act as a temporary gland. So placenta is also a temporary gland, right? Taking over the function of the corpus luteum. Okay, now let's see what happens after the egg is released. Egg is released. This is the egg with some other structures around it. And you see, this is very interesting. This is the ovary and fimea. It's not directly attached to the ovary, like a little bit, there is a little bit gap, okay? So the egg will come out and fimea are moving like this to capture the egg, take the egg inside. Sometimes if you have a small child, you walk with your child and do what this, right? So fimea are doing like that. So egg is released, fimea captures, okay? Take it inside. And where the fimea are attached, this part is called the infundibulum. So if you just think my 2 arms, uterine tubes, 2 uterine tubes, this is the uterus. I don't want to be. Okay, so this is the uterus. These are uterine tubes, right? Fimea. And where the fimea are attached, like my palm or hand, this is called the infundibulum. Is it clear? And then there is a turn and little bit expanded that part, and that is called the ampulla. Okay? Remember, I will ask you. This part is what? Ampulla. And then the body, and isthmus is the part that gets attached to the uterus. Isthmus. Okay, so these are what? Fimea, fingers, right? Finger-like structures, fimea. And this part, infundibulum. Is it clear? And then the turning part where it is a little bit wider, ampulla. Now, ampulla is very important. Why? Because most of the cases, fertilization occurs inside the ampulla, in this part. So sperm travels a lot, goes here, and egg comes here. They meet in the ampulla of the uterine tube or fallopian tube. Is it clear? Most of the time, fertilization occurs in this part, here. And after the fertilization, the fertilized egg, which is called the zygote. So this is the ovum, this is the sperm. Sperm penetrates through the wall of the ovum and enters into the ovum. And here you have 23 pairs of chromosomes. Here you have 23. We talked about that before. And so the head of the sperm enters here. So now you have 46. And this is the fertilized egg. And this is the first cell of new life. And the fertilized egg is called a zygote. Fertilized egg is called what? Zygote. 23 pairs of chromosomes joined together. So zygote is the first cell of the new life. Then the zygote will start to move towards the uterus. Uterus is the house, okay? So it is like, Thanksgiving is coming, right, next week. If you get a call from your friend that, I'm coming, you like your friend a lot, so you suddenly got a call that I'm coming, and you do what? You clean the house, right? And make nice, soft, beautiful, soft bed, because your friend will stay. So uterus does same thing. Every time ovulation occurs, okay, uterus starts to make nice soft bed, expecting that the fertilized egg will come, okay, into it. Now, if your friend told you that I am coming on this day, see you at the airport, you went to the airport, right? If you don't see your friend, everyone is gone. You didn't see your friend, you get angry, right? You'll get upset. You'll get angry. So you'll come to your house and destroy the bed, right? You'll break the bed. So uterus does the same thing. Okay? Every time uterus expects when ovulation occurs that fertilization will occur and fertilized egg will arrive into the uterus. So it makes what? Nice, soft, what? Bed. Nice soft bed, right? In the endometrium, inner layer of the uterus. That is called endometrium, endometrial bed. In most of the cases, what happens? Fertilization doesn't occur, right? And uterus destroys the bed, its bed. And when the bed is destroyed, everything gets out from the body, and that is called what? Menstruation. Make sense? So the destroyed bed shed gets out from the body, and that is the menstruation. It has all destroyed tissue, blood, glands, all those structures. So now let's see the uterus. This is the uterus. The top part is called the fundus, like fundus of the stomach, the dome-shaped part. Okay, that is the fundus. And then you have the body, middle portion. And lower end is called the cervix. Cervix of the uterus. Make sense? So the cervix has a canal that is called the cervical canal. So this part is the cervix. Inside it you have a cervical canal. Okay? And this canal has two ends. This is called the external os, and this is the internal os. In between you have the cervical canal. So internal and external os. If you see the wall of the uterus, wall has three layers. Outermost is the perimetrium. Peri means around, you know that, perimeter, perimetrium. Middle thick layer is called the myometrium. Myo means muscle. And innermost layer is called the endometrium. You remember I said endometrium makes nice soft bed. So innermost layer makes soft bed, right? So that is the endo means inside, endometrium. So that is the uterus. Okay? The cervix enters into the upper part of vagina. And so this is the vagina, and this is the cervix of the uterus. And around the cervix you have a space, and that space is called the fornix. So fornix is the space. It is like this. You see, this is a section, right? Actually, this is the cervix of the uterus, and this is the vaginal wall. So this space around the cervix, that is the fornix. Now if I cut it, it will be like this. Okay. So that's how the egg, fertilized egg or zygote, is taken into the uterus. Three layers in the wall. Okay. Okay. Now we'll see the innermost layer. Innermost layer is the endometrium in the wall of the uterus, which is very important because I told you the bed is formed in the endometrium. So if you see the innermost layer, endometrium has two layers in it. This layer is fixed layer. This is called stratum basalis. And there is another layer in the endometrium which is not fixed. This one is actually the bed, endometrial bed. This layer is called stratum functionalis. So stratum basalis is fixed layer, it will stay there. Stratum functionalis is the layer which changes. So this layer changes. Uterus makes the functional layer thick and soft, expecting that fertilized egg will arrive. So it makes it thick and soft, like you make for your friend. And if fertilization doesn't occur, then what happens? This functional part is destroyed. Okay? So it will get into pieces and will get out from the body. Okay? So that happens. So the whole functional layer is destroyed, completely gone here. Then again, the functional layer is formed and get thicker. Okay? Functional layer is formed again, but fixed layer stays there. Stratum basalis stay here. Functional layer is destroyed and formed again. Okay. Now the last thing today, I'll make it short. We'll stop. So, if you see the blood supply in the uterus, two types of arteries you will see here: straight arteries and spiral arteries or radial arteries. So these are spiral and they enter into the functional layer. So straight and spiral or coiled arteries. And this one is supplying blood to the functionalis layer. This is the stratum basalis. So what happens, this is interesting. The spiral arteries get heavily constricted. Constriction of the spiral arteries occur. So when constriction occurs in the spiral arteries, then blood supply is stopped in the functional layer. And when no more blood supply is here, then the tissue is destroyed. Okay, so that's how menstruation occurs, due to constriction of the spiral arteries. Okay, no circulation in the functional leg. Make sense? So it will not get oxygen, nutrition, it will be destroyed. Okay. Now, who controls or who causes that constriction of the spiral arteries? The sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone. We'll talk about that. The change of the hormone. Okay, we'll do that. So when the progesterone level drops, suddenly the arteries constrict strongly. Okay. So now the uterine artery. Uterine artery, you remember external, internal iliac arteries. External is bigger, goes to the leg. Internal stays, I told you at that time. Internal iliac supplies blood in the pelvic organs, right? So uterus is a pelvic